Hi, so this is the second part of my video on tarot. And this time I'm gonna talk a bit more about how I actually do a reading. So first of all, the mixing, I do just like some general, honestly, just whatever. But I'm gonna actually turn the camera around and show y'all just a process of how I usually mix cards. So generally I do some, obviously now I'm gonna be shit out of it because I'm filming, but like this, just whatever comes to mind. I do try to be careful not to bend these cards because I want to keep them. I don't want to have to buy new ones. But what I always do is, and I don't know what the common practices or whatever, but I do this. Just I've seen some people who mix in ways that they like turn around a few cards so that they can be reversed, but I just mix them all together, so there's always a very big chance that some of the cards will be reversed. But I leave it all in Apollo's hand, you know. So then I gather them together, which sometimes takes kind of an eternity, especially if I do it properly, which I'm not doing it right now. I'm also not doing a reading right now, I'm just showing. And then I usually mix some more. I usually do this for like a while before, because I also use this time to connect to Apollo and whoever I'm trying to, and/or whoever I'm trying to communicate with. Then I basically, it kind of depends on what type of reading I do, but generally I cut the deck either into 3 or sometimes into 2, and then I just feel which one I should take, set the rest to the side, and then I kind of go through them one by one until one feels right, like the one that I'm meant to take. And then obviously I take that, and then basically this is the Ace of Swords. I basically see if I feel like the gods have more to tell me, and if they do, then I might pull a second or third card, assuming I'm not doing the specifically past, present, future, but just a general question or something. So yeah, that's basically how I do it. Also, if a card falls out, I also set that aside as like a side note, basically, that I also look at later, usually after I've done the actual reading, if I can help it. Sometimes it falls face up and then I can't, but yeah. I also generally put the card that I pulled on the bottom of my deck, like so that it's facing out after I'm done. That's just kind of a habit I have, because it helps me to kind of keep it in mind and like think about it afterwards more. So I keep it there, and also just practically I can go back and check what I had again. So yeah, that is basically my physical process with shuffling and such. But generally I do it very intuition based. So like how many stacks I cut it into, or things like that. It's just like what feels right in the moment. Sometimes, although rarely, it's also just I shuffle and then I cut it and just take the bottom card, if that feels right. But generally I go through them and see which one feels right. And then something that might be somewhat unpopular, I don't know actually what like the general consensus is, but before, I don't actually know from the top of my head all the meanings of all the cards specifically. And I tend to, what I do is I pull a card, like the Lovers here, and then I just generally basically stare at it and really try to connect with whoever or whatever I'm trying to connect with, and just look at it and see what it means to me, like what I feel is the message that I'm getting through it, which can be just an energy thing. It can also be like related to the art, which is part of the reason why I wanted this art specifically. So I might like look at it and see what stands out to me and what speaks to me, and try to intuit and interpret the message from that. After I do that, I do generally still like look up the meaning of the card, and I do try to use reliable websites, because there's one or two websites that I've tried to use that are very bad and inaccurate and scammy also, which isn't related to obviously the information they have on there, but yeah, it is like a lot of times. So you gotta be careful about that. But yeah, so especially for the cards, like I keep just pulling major arcana I genuinely can't. Okay, here. I was genuinely unable to find something that wasn't major arcana for a second there. But especially if it's something that isn't major arcana, after I've done that initial like own interpretation, I might look up the generally accepted meaning for it and let that kind of steer like the direction a bit. Like if it, like I might have interpreted the card as the exact opposite, like inverse of what it was. That has happened a few times. Like sometimes, because of also personal issues, I interpret a card as meaning like someone is lying to me, or someone isn't telling me the whole truth or something, and then I look it up and it's actually, you should trust people more. So yeah, that is like steers me, but also I do listen generally first to my own intuition, so it kind of is more about how the generally accepted like meaning of the cards, how that informs my own interpretation. So yeah, so it is an aspect, but my own interpretation is generally the most important thing for me. Which is also why I don't like, one of the reasons why I basically never do readings for other people. And when I do, it's only people who are pretty close to me generally. And I do always warn them, or like tell like a disclaimer basically, that it might be skewed by my own bias and thoughts about them. It might be affected by my own opinion about their current situation, for example. It might just be affected by it being a less direct connection to the universe, the gods, whatever you want to like connect with. It might be just less direct because it's filtered through me, which gives it an extra point of fault, basically. like an extra place where something can be misunderstood. So generally I try not to do them, but occasionally when friends ask me nicely and I feel like they understand what meaning it does and doesn't have, I do occasionally do readings for them, but generally I only do them for myself, because it is also a very personal thing to me, just like most of my practice is. So yeah, but I can occasionally do something, but I only ever do readings when a person understands the purpose of tarot, at least in how I use it. Because the purpose is not to predict what happens, it isn't even really to tell you what to do, it's just meant to be some guidance and some advice. So it does come from the gods, but the gods aren't gonna force you in a direction, they're just gonna show you a path. And you also have to interpret that for yourself always. So, yeah. It is sometimes also, of course, and I feel like this goes without saying, but I do want to mention it here at the end. Sometimes the things tarot tells you, the things the cards tell you, the things the gods tell you are not comfortable. Sometimes it puts a mirror directly in front of your face so that you see every little detail and every pore of your life that you like to look away from. And this is also a thing I feel like that is talked about a lot, at least in the right circles, but yeah, it's not always gonna be nice and friendly and encouraging. Sometimes it's gonna be a fucking wake-up call. And now I don't think you should entirely upturn your life due to a tarot reading, especially if it's made by someone else. And doubly, especially if you're paying someone for it. I personally could never take money for tarot, but also that's a whole different conversation to me. But I think if someone were to turn their entire life around or like make some huge change based on a tarot reading, then that is a change that was already on their mind and they just needed some sort of like spark for it or something like that. And that is something that tarot can be good for just like if you know what you want to do but you're very hesitant about it, then sometimes tarot can give you that little push to go for it. But sometimes it can also say like, sometimes it's not always the interesting and cool thing. Sometimes it's just like, nah, maybe chill out, maybe think about this a bit more. Like, yeah, this video has also gotten quite long, I think. But I wanted to go a little bit more in depth about my own process. If you have any more questions, leave a video. If I have any more thoughts that come up for me in regards to tarot, I will likely share them. Either on another full tarot video or maybe just as a mini video. I still haven't made another one, but I've got some ideas for it, so. But yeah, so if you have any questions about it, leave them below, and that's it. Oh, also I might make a video about like the concept of taking money for spiritual things, like spiritual actions, because I've got some opinions on it. It's not black or white, it is very nuanced to me, but I do have some opinions on it, so maybe I'll do a video about that at some point. But yeah, that's it.